Welcome to Rangers Nation Podcast, talking all things Texas Rangers. Rangers Nation Podcast is a part of Dallas Sports Nation, providing coverage of all your DFW sports teams. Now here's your host, Texas Rangers blogger, the Recliner Nerd.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Rangers Nation's Podcast. This is your host, the Recliner Nerd, and today's episode, Rusty Greer. We got a special guest with us. A lot of you know him. Rusty Greer played 9 years in the big leagues with the Texas Rangers. Texas Ranger Hall of Famer. He's with us right now. Rusty, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Well, you bet. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've already had Rusty on. He was on Life in the Big Leagues. We did that with Benji Gill and Jeff Fry. But we want to have Rusty on and just do some fun stuff here, get to know Rusty. A lot of you have probably seen this in different avenues, but we're going to do it today and get to know him after baseball and see how things are going. Hey, Rusty, where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was actually born in Fort Rucker, Alabama. My dad was in the Army, flew helicopters in the Army, was in the Vietnam War. So he was a helicopter pilot there. And I grew up born in Fort Rucker, Alabama. We moved to Cleveland, Georgia, I believe, if I'm getting this timeline right. I'm a lot older than I used to be. Left there, went to Albertville, Alabama. And that's where I grew up, was in Albertville, Alabama. So I spent, I was there from the time I was 7 years old. I was 18 when I left chasing baseball.
Chasing baseball. So now, did you play any other sports when you were growing up?
I played basketball. That's actually where all my scholarship offers was for basketball. I was back then a pretty decent point guard. And when I say scholarships, I mean like junior colleges and stuff like that. So I played basketball and I played baseball, and you know, I know that's a whole argument about with people today about multi-sport athletes, and my argument back is, you know, it's and I'm a little bit different now, so bear with me. It's hard in today's world to play multiple sports with the seasons overlapping the way they do.
Yep.
And back then, you know, we played basketball. We were pretty good. We played, you know, 25, 30 games. Baseball, we played 25, 30 games. And I was separated by football, but in today's world, especially at the 5 and 6A level in Texas, I mean, you've got to be a real dude to be able to come off a football field and go straight into baseball, basketball court, go straight into baseball, and expect to be the shortstop hitting third. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Just behind. And so I'm a little bit different when it comes to that multi-sport thing. I believe that these kids, if they're old enough to say, I want to play one sport, then I'll let them play one sport. That's what I do with my kid anyways. But yeah, I played two sports, basketball and baseball, but it's much easier to do back then than it is today.
Oh, I'm 1 year older than you, so I'm the old man here between the two of us. So, but I did the same thing. I was football and baseball. I didn't play basketball. Basketball outgrew me by the time I got into high school. I was the point guard. When I got in high school, everybody else shot up, and I didn't. But I stayed with football. You never played football?
Never played football. I just didn't have any interest in it. You know, it made more sense to me to be on a baseball field than it would be for 2 days and the heat and getting beat up on. Now, looking back on it, yeah, I wish I probably would have played football. Just going to high school football games here. Now, growing up in Alabama, of course, Texas is football.
Right.
Growing up in Alabama, just the Friday night lights, the whole deal. Looking back on it, if I could do it again, I probably would have given football a whirl at least 1 year in high school just to see if I liked it. But it just never really floated my boat. Now, today I love college football. It's about the only sport I watch outside of baseball is college football, and follow the Tide and
now you so you're an Alabama guy and you like now Mason's at Auburn, right?
Mason is at Auburn. He's actually transferred. He's going to McLennan this next year.
That's a big JC basketball school.
Yeah. So he's going there. There were some things that happened there, you know, with NCAA giving everyone their year back because of the COVID-19 stuff. There were some seniors that came back, and so one of those guys came back and directly impacted him. So he chose to go to transfer and go to McLennan under Mitch Thompson down there, and they have a great program. But yeah, so he's actually an Alabama fan. He went to Auburn. I'm a Bama fan. My wife's an Auburn girl. So it's fun.
I grew up a UT fan. I didn't go there, but being a Texas boy, I grew up a UT fan. There's some good battles, and you know, you're the national championship the year that Colt McCoy took them. Alabama, and of course now Alabama where they're at. Hey, did you pitch in high school or did you just play the field?
I did pitch a little bit in high school. I pitched more in what back then would be called Pony League, Colt League, Mustang League, that kind of thing. I pitched more then. When I got to high school, I pitched a little bit, probably my freshman year in high school. But for the most part, I was an outfielder, so I didn't pitch a whole lot in high school. And that still didn't keep me from having arm surgeries. I had arm surgeries, but it probably prolonged it a little bit for sure.
Wow. So you're in Alabama. There's not really any pro sports teams there. Who did you grow up fans of when you were growing up?
Well, the Braves are over in Atlanta, and so we had the Braves on TBS every single night. But I was a fan of the Boston Red Sox and the LA Dodgers. I think to this day the Dodgers have the whitest uniforms. Whoever does their cleaning is the best at it, and they never have a stain on them. But the Red Sox and the Dodgers were my two growing up, and of those two, probably the Red Sox were my favorite team growing up.
Now I know you're a Ranger fan, obviously, because of your career and all that. Are you still a fan of the Red Sox? Hard to let it go as an adult if it's not the Rangers.
Well, yeah. So I'm obviously follow the Rangers, but I follow the Red Sox. I've always loved Fenway Park. And to be honest with you, when I played in the big leagues, it was one of those stadiums where I would go into, and it's a pretty hostile environment, but for whatever reason, people did not get on me there. And I enjoyed playing there. Fenway Park played into my game as far as being a left, opposite field hitter, left center, left field. And I still follow the Red Sox, but not to the extent that I did back when I was growing up.
Yeah, it's a great place. In fact, I think I told you I ran into you in Boston one year. We went up. I love that stadium, but man, the Fenway Park is amazing. Just for a fan, it's an experience as a fan. If you love to go watch baseball, that's something you got. It's the oldest stadium in the major leagues. You got to go check it out. It's pretty cool.
It is nice, and we used to walk from the hotel to the park, and just getting out and being in that. There's Yankee Stadium, there's Fenway Park, there's several stadiums that have a lot of nostalgia to them. Well, old Yankee and old Detroit, a lot of nostalgia to them, and a lot of things that went on over the course of the history of baseball that are really interesting and specific to that park. Pesky Pole, Bucky Dent going yard in the seventh in a playoff game after being down so many games. Just a lot of things specific to different parks. And not to mention the atmosphere that's there, the wall, and people don't understand how close that wall is. And it's tall, super close, and the fans are right on you, and it's just a good place to play, and the atmosphere is good. It was for me, anyways.
Well, it's not surprising you said they didn't get on you. We were there in all Ranger gear because we were fans as Ranger fans, and one of our things back then was to go watch Rangers play out of town. They were great to us. First of all, how'd you get tickets? They want to know. They were awesome to us. I mean, it was, a little risen back and forth is always what fans do, but man, they were really nice. They were good, educated. Everybody was educated. So we were having fun doing nerd stuff, talking baseball the whole game. So it doesn't surprise me.
I've been in Fenway Park and heard them boo louder when a Red Sox didn't move a runner from second to third than getting on to me in left field for making an error. So yeah, knowledge is huge. And I think those fans pride themselves on that. And I played right field there too. I played left field for the majority of my career, but right field too. Now they'll get on you in the right field corner down there a little bit.
By Pesky.
Down there by Pesky.
Yeah.
They'll get on you down there a little bit, but that was probably my favorite park to play in, just from not on the standpoint of the history and the nostalgia, but it fit into my game really well. The way I played, swinging the bat and using the opposite field the way I did it with that short channel left, it really played into my game.
So, okay, you played at Montevallo, the college, University of Montevallo. I always say that wrong, I think. Did you have any other offers?
No. Well, let me back up. No, I did not, but then I did kind of. So there were some Division I schools that came and saw me play as a senior in high school, and they, ironically enough, they all said that I wouldn't play Division I baseball, or I couldn't hit in their conference. And so Montevallo was the only school, and I'll take you to this story. I had a neighbor down the road that went to Montevallo, and he knew the assistant baseball coach. Well, he told the assistant baseball coach, he said, hey, there's a kid from my hometown. He lives right up the street from me. He's pretty good at baseball. And so they set up a tryout. Now, Montevallo at the time was an NAIA school. And so, I mean, NAIA, you can try out, you can do whatever.
Right.
And so they called me, and it was Doug Sisson. He calls, hey, Coach Sisson, Montevallo, I want you to come down and try out. We hear you can play a little bit. So I said, okay. And so it was me, and there was probably 8 or 9 other guys there. And so I actually had to go try out and did well, and was the last player that Coach Reisner, Bob Reisner, who's the head coach, let go for the day. And he called me and said, hey, we like the way you swing the bat. We'll give you a scholarship. And so I said, okay. So I went home, talked to my parents, called him back and said, hey, I want to come play for you. Well, after that, I go to the East-West All-Star Games, which is kind of like the all-state tournament.
Yeah.
And did really well. And after that, there was probably a half dozen schools that kind of say, hey, I want you to come play for us, give you a scholarship. And the way I was raised, when you say something, you do it. And I said, no, thanks. I'm going to Montevallo. And two, they're the only ones that step out on the limb for me. And that meant something to me, being from a small town and not really well known. And they were willing to take a chance on me. And so I said, no, I'll go to Montevallo. And I'm glad I did because, I started all but 2 games there.
Your freshman year, you had an awesome year.
Yeah, I didn't start my first game my freshman year. And then I didn't start one game my sophomore year because I made the coach mad. Nothing I did off the field. It was on the field. I wasn't performing really well. So I didn't start 2 games. So I got on the field right away. And that's what I tell these kids today it's not about the conference or the school. It's about the level. It's about being on the field. And the only way you can be drafted is by being on the field. So I went to Montevallo, NAIA school, had 2,200 kids there and got drafted in the 10th round. And so that's what I relate to my kids, all these kids that I'm around, is go where you're going to play because it's hard to play at some of these places, especially with veteran guys there. Get on the field, and if you are good, pro scouts, they will find you.
They'll find you.
And I'm a prime example of that because there's really no way that – now, there have been a few people drafted out of there before me, but never as high in the 10th round.
Right.
And – and two, it's funny how the good Lord works. Things work for a reason. And at the time, like I was not a burner. Like I couldn't fly. I could run a little bit back then.
Yeah.
My arm was very, very average, but I could swing the bat. Yeah. And so I had all these teams saying they were going to draft me. Well, back then in the late 80s and early 90s, the Texas Rangers, they were all about swinging the bat. And they'd figure a place out for you, where to play.
That was secondary.
Yeah, if you could swing the bat, you were good. And so they drafted me, and so it worked out really well from that standpoint.
I got to ask this. Since you and I are the same age, and I tell these – I've coached a lot since I've got out. I just played ball through high school. We played with bats. Today they play with these bats that have like a drop 3, a drop, the drops. I had probably a drop 10. Did you play with those, the barrel, the light ones?
No, I never did. And the older people sitting here, they know – I called it green magic and black magic. Yeah. There was the green Easton and the black Easton.
I had the green Easton.
And so, but if you think about it, those are 33-30s. They just didn't call them drop 3s or drop 5s or drop 8s.
Yeah.
When I was growing up using aluminum bat, I basically picked what the store had. And I didn't know if it's a drop 10 or drop 8 or drop 3 or whatever.
That's me.
And now it's to the point where all the rules in the youth organizations that you have certain
got to be USSSA stickers and
stickers and all that because now back then the bats were hot and the balls were hot.
Right.
Today's game, man. To be honest with you, some of these kids, as big as they are, now we had I played with some guys that were pretty big and swing the bat. But some of these guys today, with that hot bat and that hot ball, somebody might get hurt. If they want the BB Core bat, the ball comes off the bat good, right?
Right.
But if you take, you take the kid take my kid, take Bobby Wood Jr., take the kid that got drafted first overall, any of these guys.
Yeah.
You put that bat in their hands, the damage they're going to do would be incredible because people don't understand. You could hit it and it'd go.
Yeah.
Good. But no, I just had the green magic and the black magic. That was it.
Hey, I saw something so I go to your baseball reference page. I'm getting ready for this. Did you play for the USA national team?
Not yes. I played for a national team, but it was not the Olympic team.
Okay.
And I think it was '88 maybe. Um, I went on a national team to. We played in Taiwan. We were over there for
Wow.
like 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. I forget how many days. But I was on that team with Chuck Knobloch, Mo Vaughn, Alex Fernandez.
That was my next question. Any big leaguers on that team?
Yeah, all these guys, all of them were on that team, and we went over and we played Japan, we played Taiwan, we played South. I think we played South Korea. But yeah, I was on there and had a great experience, and was the only NAIA player on that team. And I think the way it came out is the team had to consist of so many people from different levels.
Right.
I was the NAIA guy that was chosen. It was a Division II guy who was my roommate. Then you had D1 guys, and so yeah, I went over there and played, and we did well. I forget how we finished, but spent some time over there.
That's got to be neat. So was that your senior year of college, or was it
That was my sophomore year of college.
sophomore year of college?
Sophomore
Okay.
year of college. And I've got the USA jersey, whole 9 yards. It was pretty cool.
That's very cool. That's real cool. Okay, let me ask you this now. When was it you realized that you might be good enough to play pro ball?
Obviously, it's every little kid's dream, and
Right.
to play pro ball. And believe it or not, the poster I had on my wall right next to my bed was Ricky Henderson.
Ooh.
He had a pair of Mizuno spikes. I think it was whatever spikes laid over his shoulder. It was when he set the stolen base record for the season.
Yeah.
And he had the eye black on, and his uniform was dirty. And I mean, literally every day I'd say, I'm doing that someday.
Yeah.
Not stealing bases because I couldn't run that much, but playing baseball. And so just moving forward, I was playing and got to Montevallo, and that was my first goal to go to college. And then after my freshman year in college, I had some junior college or some scouts basically tell me, hey, I'd like to transfer to a junior college. Well, they went through my coach. Hey, see if they'll transfer to junior college so he's draft eligible after next year as a sophomore. And so at that point, I said, okay, maybe I can play a little bit. Maybe I do have a chance. Well, and at that point in time, there was pro scouts that started coming around. And then leaving my sophomore into my junior year, there was, I don't know, 8 or 10 teams that came by, filled out the questionnaires. I did some workouts for them and that kind of stuff. And so then I knew, okay, now I've got a good chance. It's a matter of where I'm going to be drafted, because a lot of people said I'm going to be drafted from round 12 to 20, which I thought it'd be, in the 15 to 20 range. And then when the season started, that's when, as you're aware today, scouts show up, and there was, I don't know, there was a bunch at every game. And
they were there for you.
Yes. Now, not just me all the time. We played guys that were draftable, and I'll tell you one of the most nerve-wracking moments I've ever had as a player. We were playing at Livingston University, and this kid was a shortstop named Michael Carter. He was a really good player. He would play for Livingston, and I played for Montevallo, and so he was going to be a pretty high-level draft pick. I'm not sure where he got drafted, but it was fairly high. And so it rained, so we didn't get to take BP on the field, so we had to hit in the cage. Well, the home team hit first, and we're walking up to hit, and there's like 30 guys standing around this cage, right? And they're all pro scouts. And I'm looking, I'm going, surely they're not going to be there when I'm hitting. And we step in the cage, there's 30 guys standing around the cage. And so we go through our BP, and then my coach says, hey, Greer, jump back in there. And I hit by myself for like 10 minutes. Man.
Oh, wow.
About scared to death.
I can't imagine.
Basically thinking, if I don't swing the bat good here, I'm not getting drafted. You know? And so I got done. They left, went and watched the game, and that was one of the most nerve-wracking moments that I've had as a player.
Well, you basically answered my next question. I was saying I was going to ask you how many scouts were attending games. You say 20 or 30 were showing up.
At that particular.
Yeah, you had 2 guys in that game that were.
Yeah.
So that's why it attracted more. But on a normal thing, maybe 8 to 10.
Yeah, something like that. And it's typical. As the season goes on, it winds down to the guys that really want you and that kind of stuff. Now, there was when my junior year, there was, and if the scouting director comes in and then Player development guy comes in. That means they're really, really talking about drafting. And so there was 2 or 3 clubs where those guys came in, cross checkers, scouting directors, that kind of thing. Because at the time, I'd been told I'd be drafted as high as 7, but the majority of teams were saying in the 12 to 20.
Right.
Rangers, what I'm saying, the single digits. And so when you're talking about getting in the top 10, close to the top 5, and they're spending money, they're going to have guys come in. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it played out. And I did well my junior year, and then wound up getting drafted 10th round. There was actually a pitcher that came available in the 7th that they took, which bumped me to the 8th. Another guy came available, bumped me to the 10th.
Bumped you to the 10th. So,
Yeah.
Did you know the scout personally, the one that was on you, the guy that?
No. His name is Rudy Terrasis. He's an old school scout. Rudy Terrasis, Doug Gassaway, Randy Taylor, who's still with the Rangers, Sandy Johnson. He was the director. Marty Scott.
All those names, I remember them.
All those guys. They and two. They had a workout like it's you know how clubs will have open tryouts for guys.
Yeah.
They had told me they were going to draft me, but wanted me to come up to this open tryout in Birmingham Southern. And so we don't even get to take BP. We're facing live pitching. So we go in there, we throw from the outfield. We might have taken a round of BP or something, you know, but we go straight into facing live BP, like guys throwing. So you know the guys on the mound, they're trying to throw it as hard as they can.
Yeah.
Balls are going all over the place. I hit a couple good, but for the most part, I didn't do a whole lot, you know. And so Marty Scott, who is the player development guy, he said, we get done. I came walking out of the cage. And he said, well, you didn't hit any out. And so I'm thinking, there I go again. I'm not getting drafted. Well, I'll tell you another story about that right there. Doug Gassaway, he was notorious for doing things, right? And so him and Rudy Terrasis, they really liked to wrestle on the bat. And so we had to run the 60, right?
Yeah.
And so Gassaway he's he would have been like, he's not the cross checker. He might have been like a regional cross checker. He was above the area guy, which is Rudy. So he's out there, and all the guys are out there and says, hey, we're gonna measure off the 60. He says, no, I got it. So he goes out there and measures off the 60. And this is a true story. I'm not kidding. True story. Measured off the 60. And so we get done with the tryout. And so my assistant coach, who the Rangers wanted to hire as a manager and wound up hiring him, we go to the La Quinta Inn in Birmingham and hang out with the Rangers guys, right?
Right.
And so they're sitting around, we're hanging out, and they start laughing. And I'm thinking, what in the world are these guys laughing at? And so Randy Taylor, he said, Gas, they call him Gas. Gas, you're going to tell him every week. And so he said, I'll tell him. He said, because I ran like a 6.85, you know, fastest time I'd ever run. And you can tell where I'm going with this. You can tell where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
6.85. I'm thinking, man, I was flying. The guy says, you know, at 6.85 you ran today? He said, yep. He said, that was on 56 yards.
I said 55. I just said
it might have been 57 and a half, 58 and a half, whatever it was, 58 and a half to 58 yards. But anyway, it was short, so he measured off short because he wanted to grab it. That's a true story.
That's funny. Oh, man. Make you think you're fast as you are. Then you start trying to steal bases when you don't have the –
Yeah, no kidding.
So tell me how you found out you'd been drafted. I know it's not like today they did the whole thing.
No. It's completely different. There was no TV. There was nothing going on. Basically, I was the day of the draft. The Rangers, Rudy Terrasis called me and said, the draft starts on, let's say, Monday. Just be by your phone. So I basically sat there in my house until I got called. And phone rang, I picked it up. Hey, Rusty, it's Rudy Terrasis. Hey, we took you in the 10th round. I'll be up there to sign you Wednesday. So, okay, man, that's great. And I was all excited. So he came up on Wednesday. I wanted to go play. And so back then, I think the 10th round now gets like 125 grand, 150 grand, something like that. I got 15 cash and 7,500 for school, so 22,500. It's what I got. Now, looking back on it, I probably could have said, I want 30 cash or 25 cash and 7,500. I could have got it. But my dad, I mean, and I'm 19, 18, 20 years old, 21, I guess, at the time. And my dad said, "Do you want to go play or not?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll go play." So I got 15 cash and 7,500 for school. Got in my truck or got on a plane and left. That was it.
And that's when you went to Butte, right?
Butte, Montana. Yep, Butte, Montana. That was short season A-ball.
Okay, let me find out where I'm at here. So, so your first time was Butte, Montana. Was that the first time you ever used a wooden bat?
No, I'd used a wooden bat and BP and stuff. And when I was in college, during inter squads in the fall, I would use a wood bat. And actually, that's how Rudy Terrasas kind of got on me too. He was watching the inter squad game, and I was using a wood bat and hit two balls out. And that's kind of how he. Matter of fact, we were sitting there. He was sitting there, and we were playing the game. And it was early in the inter squad game, and so in Montevallo, all the inter squad games you played, there was something. Coach Reed put something on the line, so it was something like you didn't want to lose. Matter of fact, I think this might have been during our World Series. And so I hit two balls out, and I was coming up for a third or fourth at bat, and it was deep in the game. The game was almost tied. It was a close game. There was runners on, so I went up with an aluminum bat. And he comes walking in. He says, "Don't go up there with that aluminum bat. Take that wood back up there." And so I'm thinking, all right. So I went and got the wood and freaking ground it out.
So tell me, as a guy that never played, the only wooden bat I ever used, I got a little Ranger wooden bat when I was about 10 and used it one time. What is the difference between what we use, the green bomb, black bomb, and the wooden bat? Tell me the difference when you start using one. What is the difference between them?
Well, it's still different today, even with the BB course today, and this is kind of the way I explain it. People may disagree or agree. Obviously, the sweet spot's much smaller.
Sure.
And on today's bat, that sweet spot is huge. On those bats we used back in the day, it was smaller than they are today, but still bigger than a wood bat.
Right.
And so when you really square a ball up or hit on the screws, whether it's wood or aluminum, you don't really feel it, right?
Right.
And kind of the way I describe it is a sweet spot's smaller. It's less forgiving. The bat will break. Aluminum obviously won't break, but when the ball comes off an aluminum bat, my personal opinion is the ball jumps, right?
Right.
But then it somewhat dies. If you hit the ball with that same wood bat, same amount of exit velocity or whatever, for me, the ball may not jump as much, but it carries further.
It carries further.
I believe it's just that mass coming through the strike zone.
Because it's solid.
Solid, yeah. It's a solid piece. And that's why I tell my kid, like all these kids, they want to use wood bats. I say it's a different bat. Well, it's still a 3330 bat. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's a different bat. You can have a 3330 C271 and a 3330, whatever it may be. Same weight, same length, but the bat is different because of the head weight, because of the handle, because of all that stuff. And so that's the biggest difference. To me, the ball jumps off aluminum bat, whereas a wood bat, it carries further. It'll still jump if you hit it good, but you've got a much smaller area to hit that ball in.
Now, so you were saying that in inter squad and stuff, you would use the wooden bat before you ever got drafted. Did you ever use it in a college game, a wood bat, or did you just?
No, I never did. No,
you never did. Okay,
I never even want to try. You know, at the end of the day,
it was about winning then. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even not that. At the end of the day, if I got a choice between wood and aluminum, I'm gonna pick aluminum.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
Even right now, I'm picking aluminum.
Yeah.
Because I got more of a chance, and I don't have to be as precise. And so no, I never even thought about that.
So we talked about this when we did the Life in the Big Leagues, but I want to talk about it again with you now for anyone that didn't hear that one. So where were you playing when you got called up? That was a funny story you told. I want to hear that, and tell us about your major league debut. That was a good story too.
So I was in Oklahoma City. We were playing at the fairgrounds then. So I am the last outfielder on the roster at the time. So I was going to spring training. Let me back up. This is going to be a little bit of a long story.
That's fine. We got time.
Back up. So I was in AA, got called to AAA, and then it was the first year the Arizona Fall League was '93, and so they sent me to Arizona Fall League. And so Kevin Kennedy, who was the manager at the time, came out and saw me, and I was doing really well. He said, "I want this kid on the roster." So they wound up putting me on the roster. So I got invited.
Is that the 40-man? You're talking about the 40-man?
40-man roster. So I went to big league camp. I was number 56, sat back in the back corner in Port Charlotte. and never even, I was just happy to be in the big league clubhouse, never even had expectations, right? So as spring training goes on, I'm doing pretty good. I'm getting my chances. When I got my chances late in the game as a replacement for the starters, I'd get a knock, driving a run. Then I got a start against Toronto in Dunedin because Juan Gonzalez had a hamstring or something was wrong, so he didn't start. So I got to start. I went like 2 for 3 with a 3-run homer, right? And so then a couple of days later, I come in the game a little bit early. It still wasn't a start. It was about the 5th inning instead of the 7th or 8th. I hit another home run. So then there was I was playing late in the game one day, and I played down the line in Port Charlotte, and I was playing left field, and they had a short fence down the left field line. So ball's going, and I never even stopped, man. I hit that fence wide open and caught the ball and did a barrel roll over the fence and
chain link.
Yeah. So anyway, so I was doing good. And so I was the last player cut out of big league camp, and they told me, hey, we're going to send you down. It's between you and Rob Ducey. Rob Ducey had major league time. I didn't. So we're going to send you down. But I went to Houston with them, played the exhibition game in Houston, and came here and played the 2 exhibition games against
That's
the
the one I saw. Yeah.
Yeah. And so went to Oklahoma City, drove from here to Oklahoma City. Actually, I might have flown back to Port Charlotte. Anyways, got my truck somehow to Oklahoma City and started the season there. Was there for 29, 30 days a month. And so we're playing a game one night, and 3 days before this game, we were in New Orleans, and I jumped into a wall, and I ripped my ankle apart, right? Actually, years later, had to have surgery on it. Ripped my ankle apart, so I'm hobbling around. I missed 3 days, and I tell Bobby Jones, who's the manager, I can play. So he said, take your ankle, you'll DH tonight. So I DH'd for 3 days. And the 3rd day I was DHing, Gary Reedus, who was an outfielder here on the 94 club, pulled a hamstring. And so we get done with the game. I'm actually in there in the shower. I start getting scuttlebutt about, he's the only one on the roster, they call me Rojo. Rojo's the only one on the roster, this, that, and the other. So I'm hearing, all of a sudden the clubby comes in and says, hey, Bobby Jonesy wants to see you in his office. So I'm walking in his office, and there just happened to be all of the instructors there, Perry Hill, Bump Wills, all these guys were our instructors. And so Bobby said, he said, are you hurt? And I said, yeah, I'm hurt, but I can play. He said, well, you know that I can play. You're literally hobbling down the line. I'm going to have to put you on the disabled list. And I was like, no, you're not, man. Don't, all of a sudden it started getting a little bit heated. And then the instructors start chiming in. And so I'm sitting there looking around going, why don't you guys shut the, what up? and this is
why are y'all in here?
Yeah, why are y'all laughing? What are you doing, man? So me and Bobby are kind of back and forth. It's getting heated, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting my dander up. And so he's kind of acting, and these guys are laughing. And finally I said, what the F are you guys laughing at? And Bobby cut me off and said, so you're saying if you got called to the big leagues tomorrow, you can play? And I said, you dadgum right I could. He said, well, you pack your stuff, you're going to Oakland. And I turned around and said, Bobby, this ain't going to F with.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not. And stood up. They all just busted out laughing, right? All getting big hugs and all that stuff. So it was kind of cool, man. I'll never, it's something literally, there's things in your life that you'll literally never forget.
That's awesome.
Kenny Rogers' perfect game, that day, birth of my kid, that kind of stuff, It's something that I can see to this day when I walk in his office. It's kind of cool. So
we're going to talk about, I want to talk about the Kenny Rogers game to say, but keep going. So you go to Oakland.
Yeah, go to Oakland. So I packed my stuff. Of course, you do all the phone calling and packing stuff. And I had a little bitty Nissan Titan, and everything fit in the back of it. That's how little I had. So I just left it, right? Told my roommate, hey, watch my truck. And so I was awake pretty much all night. And
yeah,
I got on a plane from Oklahoma City at like 6 a.m. Flew to Oakland, got there, happened to get off the plane with Jim Sundberg and it may have been who else would have been there? Jim Sundberg. I forget who else was announcing. And so they said, are you going to the ballpark? And I was like, yeah. And so they gave me a ride to the ballpark. So I went up. At the time, we had roommates, and Darren Oliver was my roommate. So I knocked on the door, and he opened the door. And so basically, I followed him around like a puppy because I didn't know what to do. So get to the ballpark and walk in the park. I'm all excited. Now, keep in mind, I hadn't slept, but it don't matter. My adrenaline's pumping. I'm excited.
Oh, yeah.
And so I get there and find my locker, and Jackie Moore comes walking up, and he said, "Congratulations, kid. You ready to?" I said, "Thanks, Jackie." He said, "You ready to play?" I said, "Yeah, I'm ready to play." He said, "Good. You're hitting second and playing right." And when he said that, my heart went in my throat, and something else went in my drawers, and I was scared to death. And so I went and played right, played pretty good. I wound up going 2 for 5 or 3 for 5, 2 for 5 maybe with 3 RBIs. I had a home run. My first hit was a homer.
Yeah.
And then I might have had 3 hits. I don't know what I had. Anyway, 5 RBIs, was hitting second. And the funny thing is my first at bat, David Holtz is leading off, and David tells me that David was up there. He was called to the big leagues one time, so he knows. And he said, "Hey, man, same game you played since you're a kid." I said, "All right," which made me feel no better. I knew what he was trying to do, but it made me feel good. And so he doubles or he singles and still second. Anyways, he gets on second base, and Kevin Kennedy gives me the bunt sign, the stacked bunt sign, in an American League game in the first inning, And so when I tell you this, I'm not kidding you. I'd never bunted in my life. Like I was always a third, fourth, or fifth guy swinging the bat.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So I turn, anyway, I don't get the bunt down, wind up popping up to the second baseman. So Holtz doesn't move over. And then my next at bat, I hit I think a 3-run home, or maybe it's a solo home. I don't even know, but it was a home run on next at bat. So that was my first hit, second at bat.
Did you get the ball? Did they get it to you?
Yeah, I got the ball.
You did?
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell a quick Rusty Greer story because Rusty knows this story. But so when Rusty, he's talking about he played that exhibition game. That was the first year that the new stadium opened. And you said you were one of the last ones cut. And back then, and you know this, we didn't know who all the prospects were. You knew who the number 1 or 2 prospect was in anywhere, but that's about it. You didn't have the internet like you do today. And we were there for the exhibition game. I had tickets to opening day, so we were there for it. The end of the game, Rusty hit a bomb up on the hill, Greens Hill. He hit a home run. And I remember leaning over. I think I was there with a date or with my uncle that goes to me all the time. And I said, "Who the hell is Rusty Greer?" I didn't know who you were. And I was like, because we got to remember this name. And then you ended up – in fact, you met him too that day. We saw you at that it was the cooking, that opening day thing. But I was like, who the hell is Rusty Greer?
The funny thing is that the stadium opened. So that was the second day of exhibition game.
Yep.
And the starters had already played their full game back in Port Charlotte or something like that. So we're actually getting to play, right? I didn't start, but we're getting to play a little bit. And so all the starters start getting taken out, and they start asking, "Who wants another at bat?" And there's like 3 of us, man. We came in, and we're running to the bat rack because we hit, boom, making out, get back. You want another one? Yep, I'm running back. Because I never knew if I was going to get back there, right? I swing as much as I can this far. I probably had, I don't know, 8 at bats that game, but I was running every time they said, "Who wants to hit?" I was like, "I do."
Yeah, I think it was the Mets.
Yeah, it was the Mets.
It was the Mets because what I remember vividly, you're telling that story, and that's so funny because I kept going, okay, well, that was the 3rd out, but they're still just hitting. I mean, so I was like, they're just getting in at bats now. They're just and Kennedy was worried about the mound, so he'd walk out there, and he was messing with the mound. I remember all of that very, very well. Okay. Major league debut, you go 3 for 5. I think I looked that up earlier. Yeah, you told me you hit up with a home run. Okay, I want to talk about the Kenny Rogers perfect game. First of all, you made 2 catches in the game that were pretty notable. You made the last catch, but the one that you saved the perfect game earlier in the game when you hit the diving catch. At what point did y'all realize, holy crap, no one's been on. We got a perfect game going here. Did you become conscious of it?
For me, it was probably about the 6th inning. And about the 6th inning, the crowd never sat down, right? So they begin to know what's going on. They never sat down. And then as you get later in the game, every ball is a boo and every strike is 48,000 people screaming.
Right.
About the 6th inning, I knew that there was a perfect game. And as we kept going forward, that's when the pressure starts to build a little bit because you don't want to be the guy that messes that up or anything like that. And for me, being a rookie, it was double anxiety for me. But, and I tell people this all the time, as that game got later and later, there's 8 big leaguers on the field besides Kenny. And, from a little kid on, you got to want the ball hit to you. Want it hit to you. I didn't want it hit to me, man.
I was going to ask that.
There was 7 other guys on the field. They could tell you, "Oh, I wanted the ball." No, they didn't. They did not want that ball close to them. But and people talk about that diving catch, but there was actually, it never really comes down to one play. There throughout the course of the game, because it's early in the game, people forget plays. But there was several plays in that game. Dean Farmer made a nice play. Will Clark there in the ninth made a nice kind of stretch on a ball up the middle by Esteban Beltre. He threw it. Juan Gonzalez made a nice play on the ball. So there was several balls earlier in that game that, Dino's ball at third. At that time, the grass had just been put down, so it was really, really rough. When I say rough, I mean it was still big league turf, but it wasn't big league turf. It had divots and stuff, and he took a ball. It took a terrible hop on him, and he gloved it and threw the guy out. It was probably, it was a really nice play. And then, but because of that diving catch happened in the ninth, that's the one everybody remembers, and I'm glad they do. And that kind of propelled my career somewhat, was that particular catch. And there's a lot of people to this day that come up and tell me, they're our age, and they'll come and say, "Man, I was out that game, great catch, it was beautiful, blah, blah, blah." So you realize the impact, and there's people out there that remember that for the rest of their life.
Do you still talk to Kenny?
I do occasionally. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I do occasionally, yes.
He's not in the Metroplex, is he?
Last I knew, he lives in Westlake. Yeah, he's not far away, I don't think.
Oh, okay. He came in for – was he – I was at the last game in the old new ball, whatever you want to call it, last year. You were there. That was when they did move the home plate over to the new one, and he came in. He was just there for the beginning of the game. So I guess I had it in my head he lived somewhere else. So Westlake's not bad. That is still around here. Okay, so were you guys trying to avoid him? You always see that. So when you got late in the game, were you guys avoiding Kenny in the dugout?
Not really. Everybody knew what was going on, and Kenny was never a gregarious guy when he pitched. He was always somewhat focused. He was focused, and most people just went about doing their own thing.
Right.
If it's a different guy pitching, they may not say a word. I mean, they may be joking around or whatever. But Kenny was always focused on what he was wanting to do. And I don't know, if you ask him, I can't answer this. Yes, I don't know that he was really aware of what was going on until late in the game.
Right.
It's just his demeanor was, I'm out there to pitch, do my job, and I'm gonna win this game. And win a bunch of games in the big league. He did. And so, but no, it wasn't something we avoided or set away from or nothing like that. It was pretty status quo for the most part.
So who are some of the former players you still hang with? Now, I know Frito. We talked to Frito and Benji and them. You kind of – are there any other guys you played with you still hang out with every once in a while?
Yeah, Bobby Witt. He lives right up the road from me. I talk to him 4 or 5 times a week. Them. Jeff Russell. See Kenny Hill occasionally. John Burkett occasionally. So, yeah, there's still some guys that I hang out with. Bobby and his wife are probably the main two that we run around with.
So, Burkett, he's still in – now – was there a story where Burkett, did he borrow a car from you to drive back after 9/11 or something?
I don't remember.
He was on another team. I remember a story. He was something after they'd shut down, and then everybody went back, and he borrowed it because the flights weren't going. I may be remembering something different. That's no big deal. So, Mason, how many kids do you have?
I have 3 kids. They're all 20. I got twins and then one adopted son, 6 months apart. So they're 6 months apart.
Okay. Was Mason one of the twins?
Yes. He's got a twin sister. Yeah.
A twin sister. Now, did any of the other kids play sports besides Mason?
Well, my other son Clayton, he started in the sports because all the buddies. It's just a normal deal as a kid.
Sure.
And so I actually put Mason because I didn't want to drive the 2 separate practices. I made Mason play on his older brother's team with all his friends.
Yeah.
So Mason's been running around with not only his buddies but Clayton's buddies, so they're all friends. And Clayton played, I call it mainstream sports, basketball, baseball. Never did play football. Played some soccer. But then about the age of 9, he found wakeboarding, and so
cool.
He turned into a pro wakeboarder. He from 9 on. He has been wakeboarding. He wanted to quit sports then. I said, let's tap the brakes a minute. So I gave him a year to really think about it, and so he's been on a wakeboard, hadn't played mainstream sports since. He's been all over the world since he's been 16.
Holy cow!
20 countries since the time he's been 16. Spent 60-something days in Europe and all this
Wow.
stuff. So he's had an eventful life for being 20. Very, very worldly, very, very smart. Then Mason, he's the one that stayed with baseball, and then Taylor, she was in the band in high school, and she's a photographer and all that kind of stuff.
So you were a band dad too, huh? So
yeah,
you were a band dad. I've got my kids. My youngest quit baseball. He was my athlete. My older one's into. I talked with Jamie Newberg. We were laughing about it. We're both theater dads. My oldest son got into acting. Wanted to get into acting. My younger one still plays football and track, and that's it. And I never forced it. I can't imagine you were that way too. If you don't love playing, then you're not going to enjoy a sport. And
well, I wanted my kids to be passionate about whatever they did, and so Clayton had to pass for wakeboarding. Now I'm not going to say Mason got off so easy with the baseball thing.
Yeah,
because he's pretty skilled, and he gets pushed by me. He has been pushed by me since he's been a young guy pretty heavily. Just not because I see the ability in what the potential is. It's funny. People say, "Well, this guy's living through his kid, or this guy's living through his kid." And you know what I tell them? You dang right I am. My career's over, and this is, I want to live through my kid,
Yeah.
I want to go watch him. I want him to be successful. I want to live through it. And so I'm a little bit different there too. And, but no, I push and push and push. And hopefully one day, he appreciates it. So,
yeah. I did that. I did that with my younger one too. And I understand what you're saying. What you're saying is when you see the potential and the ability, our kids today can be lazy sometimes. And every once in a while you got to go, you know what? No, you need to get out there and work. Do you like playing? Yes, I do. Well, then you got to go put the work in. It's what you got to do. There's nothing.
Even with Clayton and wakeboarding, I was not a wakeboarder. I had him a wakeboard coach and the whole 9 yards, but at the same time, I lived vicariously through him because the stuff he was doing was cool. And if I could have had that when I was his age, I might have been the same thing, but I spent more hours he started behind the boat, then he found the wakeboard park.
The cable parks, yeah.
Yeah, I spent more time at a cable park than you can see straight. I mean, hours and then just sitting and watching,
Yeah.
But I pushed him just as hard. Once I learned the lingo and the guy who was training him told me what to look for, I pushed him just as hard as I did on the baseball field.
Right.
But I'm living through my kids. Ain't that what you're supposed to do as a parent?
Oh man, I love it. It's fun. It's a lot of fun to do. And every once in a while today, the electronics is so different from you and I. I mean, we were kicked out of the house when the lights came up, and we had a ball and a bat, and if we hung around the house, we had to do chores. So we were out at a ball field somewhere doing something. And today, I make them. You got to get outside. Go mow the yard. Go ride your bike. Jeez, get out of here.
Hey, what's funny though is, monkey see, monkey do. So I'm one of the biggest gamers you'll ever see.
Are you really? What do you play?
I play Call of Duty stuff.
Okay. I got that game. I can't figure it out. My son's really gotten into it. I like some of it. I'm more of the sports one. I'll play the baseball one and the football one. And
they see me playing my game all the time. So they play it. We actually play together. It's kind of fun, really.
Yeah, they can get online and play each other and stuff too. That's hilarious. So Mason. Okay, so we talked about Mason. He's back at McClendon. Where is McClendon?
It's in Waco.
But it's a big one. I had a buddy. I played high school ball. Now I went to Duncanville High School, which is pretty well known and for athletics and all of that. I was not a great athlete, but I was a good enough athlete to play. But we had some guys that went in McClendon. He was a D1. He went to McClendon and then ended up at UT, starring in the College World Series. He's about our age. He's a year older than me, so a year or two than you.
Were you there when Mr. Rombeck was the head coach?
Bob Rombeck was my baseball.
So Bob, his kid, Darren Ron, say his kid, he's our age. He's one of my really good friends. He's and his kid Nate Rombeck, who's at Texas Tech right now, playing. He's a catcher, really good player. He and Nate's a good friend. So I know all about that Duncanville history, man, all that stuff.
He walked into Bob came in when I was a sophomore in high school. Mm-hmm. And he came in and took over that program, which had been kind of storied before that. That baseball field over there has been nice for a long time. But, yeah, Duncanville but I was not I was not one of the best players on the Duncanville team. Let's just say that.
There's some good ones come through there, man. Real good ones.
Oh, a lot of really good baseball players came through there. I played with a lot of them.
Yeah.
I was on the field with a lot of them. That's a good way to put it. All right, so let me ask you this: how does Mason compare to you? Is he a hit first kid? Is he faster?
You know, first off, he's an infielder.
Okay.
So, and I taught him to play the infield because being an outfielder in big leagues, you get heckled a lot.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to have him to deal with that. So I put him in the infield. I taught him to play second first, and I taught him to play shortstop. Now he's a third baseman.
Right.
Comparatively speaking, skill-wise, he's way better than I was. He switch hits. He's got way more power. Kid's 6'1", 220, and he's a big physical.
Wow.
I just told him today, I said, man, if you'd have played football, you'd be huge in uniform. So, I mean, he's just he's a physical kid. He understands the game probably a little more than I did at that age, simply because he's been raised in it and he's talked and been around me coaching kids and all that stuff. But overall, he's better at this stage of the game than I was. And you know, at age 20, I wanted to be a really good college player. I mean, I want to get to the big. He wants to be a really good big league player. And so the college game for him, he enjoys college baseball. He enjoys being around his teammates. He's a team first guy, which I appreciate.
Sure.
As far as skill and just being ahead of the game from that standpoint, he's light years ahead of where I was at his age.
Now, so you said he switch hits. So obviously he's right-handed because he wouldn't be playing third base or infield.
Well, he's a natural left-handed hitter.
Right.
So his switch side is a right-handed. So he throws right, hits left, and switches to the right side.
When did he when did he start switch hitting? What age?
He didn't start through 16.
Really?
Yeah. So the way he became, him and his brother both, oddly enough, they throw right-handed and they hit up, swing a bat left-handed.
Yeah.
Because when they were young and I was still playing, I hit left-handed, so they'd stand like me.
Yeah.
That's the way they would learn to hit.
Right.
But he didn't start switch hitting until he was 16. It's because I kept telling him, man, if you want to show me you can hit left-handed first, and then we'll turn you around. And so in the course of the last 4 years, he's turned himself into a pretty good switch hitter. You would think he would have to start really early, but Mason's a really, really hard worker. So when he puts his mind to something, that's all he literally does and thinks about. And so that's one of his attributes is if he's struggling defensively, he's going to go take ground balls. So you ask, is he hit first? No, he is more defensive first.
Right.
He prides himself on his defense. He swings the bat really good. But he let's put it this way. If he goes 0 for 4 and makes an error, he's much more upset about that error because I beat him to his head that hitting comes and goes, man. 0 for 4, you got another day tomorrow. But defensively, your glove can play every day. That's what I beat him to his head. And I said, and I tell him too, I said, if you're swinging the bat and you go into a slump, the thing that keeps you on the field is your defense, your defensive game.
Yeah.
And so he takes that defensive stuff seriously, and it bugs him when he makes mistakes and errors and stuff like that. So he's probably a defense first, then hit, or it's kind of an equal rope there.
And third base is natural. Is there a chance he'll move around? What's McLennan? They gonna put him at third?
That right now, I think that's the plan. Is put him at third. He can play the middle infield. He's a really, really good second baseman. His body type profiles as a third baseman.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hurt him in a way because he's a big body kid, not
yeah, 6'1". Wow.
He's not fat by any means.
Yeah.
His body type says third base, but yet when you put him in the middle infield, he can still go and get balls. Now, does he have? And I'm very objective in about my kid's ability. Does he have the range to go down the line 30 yards, 40 yards on a
Pop up?
No.
Yeah.
But if the ball's hit in some place, he's going to make a play. He's going to make the play.
Right.
He can still make some nice plays. But I've always been in the mindset. Remember Kevin Elster?
Yeah.
Kevin Elster, he had zero range, but when the ball was hit where he could catch it, it was caught and thrown.
Right.
And that's my mindset when it comes to defense. I'll give you the great play, man, because they rarely happen.
Yeah.
You give me 10 out of 10 within 5-6 steps of you. That's all I'm after. So he's got good range. He'll be going forward. He'll be a backup type middle infielder. Simply because he profiles. He got a big arm. He can throw. Got a really good arm.
Yeah, from third, he's going to need that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he plays on the left side of the diamond, but his body type says third.
So now let me ask you this: do you follow the current team, current Rangers?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
Been a little bit harder because this whole
kids coronavirus. Yeah. Now y'all do a deal where you go to. Do they get y'all tickets for every opening day? Legacy or whatever it is.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I wanted to ask you this. Well, first of all, I see the deer head in the background. So you hunting fish too?
I used to before I had kids.
Before you had kids, don't do it much anymore?
No, I'm too old. I don't like getting up early in the morning.
What about, do you dove hunt or bird hunt? Or?
I don't. I mean, I plan on it eventually, but right now, man, my interest lies. Well, you think about this. You hunt on the weekends. Well, since my kids have been 8, 9 years old, pretty much every weekend we're playing baseball or doing something.
Sure, yeah.
Whether it be soccer or basketball or something. So that kind of went by the wayside. And two, where I grew up in Alabama, you could be literally hunting or fishing in 15 minutes. Well, here it's an effort level, and so I'm just not willing to put that effort in.
All right. So let me ask you helped out with, who was it that was head coach over at Wesleyan? You helped him out.
That was Mike Jeffcoat, yeah.
Mike, and you were assistant coach. Is coaching in your future? You love doing it. You want to do that?
Yeah, and I've had opportunities with the Rangers back when, but I love the amateur game. I love taking that still moldable person in teaching.
Right.
Not that you can't teach pro guys, but it's a little bit harder. I just like the amateur game. So my desire eventually, if I ever got an opportunity to be a head coach at college, that's what I would like to do.
Yeah.
Because I think I can make a difference. And my thing is, when I say make a difference, I don't mean necessarily on the field. I enjoy having an impact on these young players.
Yeah.
Off the field. Teaching them the right way, holding them accountable, because my rules, when it comes to the way you should conduct yourself on the field, in the classroom, as an individual, the bar is pretty high.
Yeah.
If you don't meet it, for me, there's some pretty dire consequences when you're there when you're out of school you're really lucky because you got a scholarship, number one. So let's go earn that scholarship, not just on the field, but off the field and in the community and all this stuff. So
yeah,
I want to have that impact. With my school now, I teach defensive stuff, and I have young youth players, 10 to 13 is kind of wheelhouse, and I like having an impact on them. I like holding them accountable and making them do things and treating them like young men, and that's when I say make a difference, not only on the field but off the field as well.
That's awesome. You talk about, will your kid ever remember it? I coached my son in everything. My youngest one, I coached him in baseball, football, all that. And his very last year of football, 6th grade, before you go to 7th grade, and he wanted to play football still. That was it for me. I had coached my kids, and so we got beat in the playoffs, and I went up to him, put my arm around him. My kid doesn't talk. I mean, he's just, he can be funny, but never says a word. Got to kick his butt every once in a while. And I put my arm around him. I said, hey, bud, you know what? It's been a blast coaching you all this time, and I've enjoyed coaching you. But now that you're going into junior high and all that, he's not playing baseball anymore, so I wasn't going to coach him. I said, I appreciate it. He buried his head in my shoulder and wept. And I went, it made me get all teary-eyed, but I was like, so you've appreciated all of this. I don't, he never said a word about it. Mason will be that way one day. He's going to tell stories.
Let me tell you this. Mason, he's old enough now to argue back, right? So we argue. Yeah. And so, but it's funny. All this time I've been telling him things, right? And I'm thinking to myself, is this kid listening? And I'll say something and we'll argue about it.
Yeah.
We'll get into it. And 2 weeks later, he'll say the same thing. And I'll say, yep, he's listening. He's listening. He didn't like it at the time, but he's listening.
Yeah, got to listen to the old man. Okay, so I'm going to play a little game. We're down to the last part of it here. Little thing, and I mentioned it to you when we did the other deal, but I wanted to do it for this one. It's called the home run game.
Uh-huh.
So you've hit home runs, 119 big leaguers, I think, or 120. You've hit them in college, high school. Tell me the very first ball you ever hit over a fence. How old were you? Do you remember it and how old you were and where you were?
I probably answered this the time before, but I don't remember now. I'm not.
Was it Little League, or did you ever hit one in Little League? Or
I never hit a homer in Little League, man. First home run I ever hit was probably in high school. That was probably the first home run I ever hit was in high school. Is what I'd say. I don't remember the game or anything, but the first home run I remember hit was in high school.
and then the other one is the one out of all of them from college all the way up. The one, and I think we did do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway for those that didn't listen to it. The one you hit, that the moment you hit it, you were like, "Holy crap, that's it! I just got all of that one."
There's a couple. I hit one in college, but the one I can see the one in college right now. I had a couple in the minor leagues, but the one that I remember was in the Kingdom. I hit it in the third deck. I had a 2-0 fastball, hit in the third deck in the Kingdom. I mean, when I say it was the perfect pitch and as perfect a swing as I could put on the ball, remember when I said earlier, when you hit it right in the screws, you don't feel it. Never felt it, and it went the third deck 10 rows up, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I was in the one of like 10 people that ever hit one up there, and that was probably the best ball I ever hit in a game. I've hit some in BP, but
Sure.
In a game, that was the best one I ever hit.
Hey, you know what? So you played all your career in that old ballpark. Where was the best BP ball you ever hit? Did you ever put one up on top of that awning?
No, I did not. Best BP ball I ever hit was in the Sky Dome. And I here again, things stick out in your head. Bucky Dent was throwing BP, and we were coming down to the end of BP, and I was the last guy in the cage, and he threw it in there. I hit the third deck in the Sky Dome.
Oh my God!
Back in the right field line. And when I hit it, everybody was like, "Holy cow!" It went probably 6 rows up in the Sky Dome. But
holy crap!
Yeah. So, but you know, those are few and far between, man. The way I've always been is, you know, it's 401 feet. I'm circling the bases. It can go 9 miles. I don't care as long as it goes over the fence.
As it goes over the fence. Well, see, I asked about that first one because I hit one in my whole life ever, and it was my junior. So obviously, I remember it. It was my junior year using the green bomb. First game of the year, I got a bunt. They had given me a bunt signal, and I missed it. So I got in trouble.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and I did, but I was like, didn't care, man. That's probably the fastest anyone's jogged around bases ever. That's the fastest I went around. I'm not big.
When you miss the bunt, man, I've missed them too, and you got to make up for it somehow.
That's right. So I was, but my home run trot, I wish I'd have gotten to enjoy it because I was just flying like I cannot believe I just hit one over the fence.
Yeah.
So what is one thing, this is the last question, is there one thing that nobody knows about Rusty Greer? Let me give you an example. There's a kid that plays on the Rangers now. He just got hurt. His name's Brock Burke. I asked all of them this question, and he came up with the most unique one. It ended up as a national story. He walks in his sleep. And even on the road and everything else, they have to watch him because he'll get up. He's woke up with shins all bloody and all of that. Another one, it's funny that your son does that, but there's a kid named Tyler Phillips that pitches, and he's in the minor leagues. He is a excellent wakeboarder. And he said, people probably don't know I can wakeboard. I'm a really good wakeboarder. So is there something about Rusty Greer nobody knows?
Well, I said earlier, I sit and play my video game quite a bit.
You're a gamer.
Yeah, gamer. I think you did ask me this, and I don't want to say. I'm trying to remember what I said because it was something that's true, but I would say I'm a gamer.
You're a gamer.
Yeah, I'm a gamer, video gamer.
All right. Well, I'm going to get one more thing. I'm going to get a plug from you for it's just hey, this is Rusty Greer with Texas Rangers, and you're listening to the Ranger Nation podcast.
Hi, this is Rusty Greer, formerly of the Texas Rangers, and you're listening to the Ranger Nation podcast.
Thanks, bud. That's it. Hey, that's Rusty Greer, Texas Ranger Hall of Famer. Rusty, I appreciate you giving me the time. I know we've been going over 2 weeks trying to get this thing together, but, hey, it's your schedule. You come on and help me out. I really appreciate it. Guys, that's Rusty Greer. Thanks for everybody that was listening. Like I say at the end of every one of these or anything I write, nerd out.